Someone finally won the Mega Millions, but no one has stepped up to claim over $100 million worth of lottery winnings in New York. And I wonder why that is. You've probably heard the stories about the curse of the lottery. People who make it big, who win the big bucks. Some of them end up depressed. It ruins their relationships. They wind up divorced. And some even die by suicide because of all the weight of instant riches. What would you do if you won the lottery? I know what I would do. And we all would think, well, it'd be nice if I had a chance to test that theory, if there really is a curse to winning the lottery. For me, it would be giving away half of it, off the bat, no questions asked. And then I'd retire my parents and my wife's parents and set up a little fund for our children. Then Morgan and I, we would go and travel the world. But at the end of the day, I think I would still come back to preaching, just because that's what I'm called to do. But what is it about this desire, these thoughts that we have, that if only we could have more, if only we could just win the lottery, then we could take care of the problems that we perceive in the world. And yet, there's a strong track record of many winners who never really fulfilled their true desire to give them that sense of happiness and joy. The Bible actually talks about this in the book of James. James says that the reason we struggle, the reason that there's conflict in the world, the reason that there's war and hate is because of envy. One scholar calls it the logic of envy. And the author of the book of James says that the reason we fight is because someone else has something that we want. Now think about it for a minute. Think about a conflict that may be going on in your own life, or in your family, in your workplace, or maybe even in your church. What's really at the root of the problem? Someone else has something that we want, and we're willing to do just about anything to get what we want. Now the logic of envy goes like this. In order to be, I must have. To have is to be. And I can't be anything unless I have everything. Now what is it that you want to be? Is it happy? Is it content? And the logic of envy will tell you in order to be happy, in order to be content, you have to have something. And the Bible reminds us that this begets a perpetual cycle of death and destruction. So what's the way out? Well, it goes like this in the book of James. Submit to God. Surrender. Humble yourself before the Lord and He will lift you up. Well, that sounds great, but what exactly does that mean? It means that we can't receive the riches of heaven if we do not surrender our lives to God. Jesus, He often preached about money, and the Gospels are littered with examples of Jesus' teaching around the love of money. Many of you have probably heard it said that Jesus invited the people to ask this question: how good would it be to gain the whole world and lose our soul? You ever think about that? You ever think about how awesome it would be for a little while to have as much money as you wanted? And then what would happen next? There's a silly country song out there. Money may be the root of all evil, but it can buy me a boat and a truck to pull it. And it's true, money can buy us things, but it's this love of money. It's this insatiable desire to keep on getting. This love for money is a curse. It's a disease. It's a pandemic that's been running rampant in human history. And every single war, every single conflict in the church ultimately comes down to the problem of greed. So how do we deal with it? How do you deal with it? How do I deal with it? I'm glad you asked. At our church, we're launching some new ministries. And one ministry is called Celebrate Recovery. It's a 12-step Christ-based recovery program, and we're using this Celebrate Recovery material to help people from any hurt, habit, or hang-up. And if you've been dealing with some unhealthy habits or hang-ups associated with money, or with greed, or with conflict, or any other hang-up, whether it's bitterness from the past, resentment, anger, substance abuse, alcoholism, our hope is that through this Christ-based recovery program, we can all take one step closer to who we really are in Jesus Christ. That's really what the Methodist Church has always been about. Our founder, John Wesley, once preached a sermon called The One Thing Needful, and he said the one thing we all need is not to win the lottery, but to recover the image of God in us. And so our job is to help each other recover that image. But what is that image? What does it mean to recover God's images in us? It really just means to live more like Jesus. If we're created in God's image, and if Jesus is the fullness of the image of God, then Jesus is the one that we're trying to model our lives around. We're supposed to become more like Christ, to live like Christ. And in order to do that, our first step is to surrender our wills, every choice that we make in life, the desires of our hearts. We have to give up and say, okay, God, I'm going to do this your way. I'm going to stop thinking through the logic of envy that tells me I have to have in order to be, and I'm going to surrender to you. Because in you are the greatest riches the world could never buy. So I hope that you'll think about walking with us on this journey. Our Celebrate Recovery team is meeting on Thursday mornings, and we're going to launch an official meeting later in October. If you'd like to know more, I'd love to talk to you about it. I hope that you have a great week, and I pray that you will be filled with all the joy and peace that comes with faith in Jesus Christ. Take care.